When president of Sega, Shoichiro Irimajiri, chose Uji Hiroi's Red Company for its newest foray into adventure gaming, they had no idea how impactful that choice would be. Spawning a new media empire for the masses of Japan, the franchise quickly surpassed the series that headlined consoles before it. Who knew a crazy series about robots and demons could become such a phenomenon? Sakura Shinguchi was becoming an icon for a new age of Sega. A strong female character was quickly overtaking the popularity of the edgy and hip hedgehog that had made the company what it is today. But with the rousing success came a question. Could it be done again? Or was this achievement just a fluke? Could Sega and Red Company make lightning strike twice? With a release day sellout and a total run of 550,000 copies, it was clear to Sega that a sequel to this newly beloved property needed to be made. But games take time to make, and the company needed a way to keep the hype going, so it was time to expand into other territories of media. Their first foray into another medium came with the release of the prequel OVA, or original video animation, called Oka Kenran, or Cherry Blossom Magnificence. Coming out between December of 1997 and July of 1998 in order to keep fans interested before the second game's release, Oka Kenran would give further insight into the characters' backstories that were not explained in the games, such as how Sakura and Sumeri came to join the Flower Troop, among other tales. This, and the other eventual anime adaptations, came to introduce the rest of the world to the Sakura Wars series. While popular in Japan itself, after being released and localized by ADV Films worldwide, the series soon gained traction in America and Europe. While fans in Japan knew the cast because of the games, if you ask someone in America, they might say they watched the anime. The fantastic late 90s animation, voices, music, and storytelling made the Sakura Wars anime extremely enjoyable whether you knew the context of playing the games or not. As fans began to emerge from the woodwork from each side of the pond, spin-offs became inevitable. The first of these was Sakura Wars Hanagumi Taisen columns, released in 1997, as what seemed like an apparent cash grab from the other video game crazes of the 90s being Tetris and columns. But it was actually a surprisingly well put together product. On the surface, it had the standard falling blocks puzzle gameplay of Tetris with a Sakura Wars flair. However, there were a few changes. For one, a story mode was included. It follows one of the 6 heroes in a similar style to the main games, with lips dialogues choices in tow with little chibi versions of the characters, reacting to the match and competing against each other for glory. A Cinderella mode was also included, which allowed you to pit each of the girls against each other for the role of Cinderella in a play. With similar dedication to the main series, Hanagumi Taisen columns would become an interesting side addition to the series at large. With Hanagumi Taisen columns' small success, many other side projects came into fruition. One such edition became just as, if not more popular than the franchise itself. Starting in 1997, a full-length, semi-annual stage show went into production. Pulling from the plays that already existed within the games, the show fully realized the theater aspect of the franchise, giving the voice actors a wide breadth of their vocal range. Donning the garbs of their in-game personas, the group, eventually including Ogami's voice actor himself, turned into a true musical theater troupe performing plays from comedies to tragedies, along with fully vocalized renditions of the series' themes, such as the famous Geki Tekko Kekiden. The popularity of these plays could be played up to Japan's rampant Sakutai frenzy. It is more likely another testament to the talent involved in the project, as the actors were quickly becoming as popular as the characters they portrayed. Even years after the series has passed on, the stage show continues to press onward towards greater heights. The culmination of the nation's rapid interest in the series came with Taisho Ramondo. Running for nearly a decade between 1998 and 2008, this dedicated Sakura Wars shop and cafe operated daily in Ikebukuro, Tokyo. The store, a Sakura Wars fans' dream, was crammed to the brim with merchandise, organized by each hero, of course. Human-sized statues of the characters in Kobu were on display, with the staff wearing Sakutai cosplay and apprehensively declining to be photographed. At the cafe, a small menu of tenuously designed character-themed sweets and drinks were available. The shop's dedication to the series could not last, however, as a decade in, it had to be closed down. These multitudes of side distractions had been hyping up the true reason fans were waiting for, the inevitable sequel. Beginning production immediately after Sakura Wars' success, Hiroi and his team were put in the difficult position of creating a second smash hit. But how do you improve on perfection? To Red Company, it started with a name. Instead of just titling it the ordinary moniker of 2, the team gave the game the subtitle of Kimi Shintamono Koto Nakari, or Beloved, You Must Not Die. Named after the controversial wartime poem by Akiko Yosano, made during the Russo-Japanese War of the 1900s, the poem served as a form of anti-war protest in response to the bloody massacre during the siege of Port Arthur. The history of the poem gave credence to Hiroi's romanticized vision of Taisho-era Japan, so the name stuck, starting the trend of subtitling the series after poems that exists to this day. With the tone of the game set, it was time to drum up a new story. It would seem like your standard sequel fare. Our hero, Ogami, has been training away in South Africa for a year, and had just returned to Japan to fight a new and more powerful Black Nest society, with the new arrivals, Orihime and Reni, along for the ride, and the original cast in tow. Just like before, it was up to the now 9-member Flower Troop to save the capital once again, but the surface of the sequel was deceiving the darker portions in the depths below. Death and rebirth became constant themes throughout, and characters crucial to the plot could face one or the other. Politics were also introduced into the fray, with the very idea of the Hanagumi being threatened. Story also took center stage. Whereas in the original game, characters' own stories were all on their own, with the plot being secondary, this time the plot and the heroes became intertwined and essential to each other. The Sakura Wars franchise had truly grown up with its fans over the past 2 years, giving them the darker and more plot-driven version they needed. The scale of the game has also been increased lengthwise too, occupying 3 discs instead of 2. Even the Hot Springs Vacation is included, a Japanese staple. Because of this, it was now possible for the Sega Saturn to read your save data from the original Sakura Wars, unlocking new scenes and allowing you to continue to cultivate your relationship with whichever heroine you'd picked thus far. A feature like this was revolutionary for its time and was not seen for many years since. The game systems also received further refinement from the formulas introduced in the original. The lip system is back, with several improvements and additions. For one, the conversation mode is introduced, involving you to go back and forth between characters until the situation is resolved or falls apart. Another type changes your options halfway through, making your decisions all the more difficult. One more gives you an overarching time limit that counts down while you deal with several individually timed lips choices. All of these, along with the original system, are overshadowed by the new personality gauge. Tracking your progress from the bottom right-hand corner, the new personality gauge shifts from red to blue depending on your actions to certain choices. Different characters prefer you to behave in different ways. Will you be a kind and gentle captain, or a strict and stern one? Neither is right or wrong. The combat also received its improvements within the game. The gameplay has been sped up immensely from the original. Battles flow more fluidly than ever before, with 3D cut-ins to the 2D fights being ever present. Active characters in battle show a full high-res bust, broken out of the UI rather than a tiny portrait. The Kobu themselves have also received an upgrade to the Kobukai, or Warrior of Light revised. Slightly souped up and more badass versions of the original. A new feature is also added to spice up the gameplay. The command option allows you to change the way your team members fight in 4 distinct ways. Do you prefer to go on the defensive and forego offense? Then Mountain is your preferred way of fighting. These new options added a new layer of technicality to the series, giving the player even more options than ever before. These grand improvements seemed like a shoe-in for the success of the sequel. All Sega had to do was release it. Releasing for the Sega Saturn in April of 1998, the critically and commercially acclaimed sequel sold a mind-blowing 530,000 units, making it one of the best-selling Sega Saturn games of all time, right next to the original. The original Sakura Wars wasn't just a fluke, it was a storm waiting to happen, a media storm like none other, placing itself among the likes of other 90s hit franchises such as Pokemon and Sega's very own Sonic the Hedgehog. Sakura Wars fever had spread throughout Japan and showed no signs of stopping. From anime to stage shows, from side projects to the main series itself, the appeal of the franchise seemed to have no bounds in Japan, and even the outside world. One question remained. How long could this dream truly last?